Sure. So I'm Al, like Alex, not AI. So we do a lot of AI at Koii. I originally got into the crypto and Web3 world because I was looking at how the internet has evolved over the years and looking for new ways that we could take the economics further towards kind of more individual dependent systems. I ended up thinking about this a lot in my time in Chicago, working in the Web3 space, and eventually we started a think tank in 2016. So from 2017 on to 2020, I spent pretty much all of my time researching major blockchains and going very, very deep on the technical side of it. We were lucky to have an Ethereum co-founder who funded the whole project, and he was kind of our mentor throughout the process. So he would have us do the deep dives on all the cryptography and kind of like actually testing all of the different products that he was interested in. And in the process, I got to really get my hands dirty, and I got to interview people like Emin Gunsar from Avalanche about how they were thinking about scaling. And I got to test pretty much every major node and every product that came out from 2016 to 2020. Having done all of that, I got a little frustrated that the space wasn't moving as fast as I thought it could. And so we started Koii in 2020. And we basically took my consulting company and some of the team from the think tank, and we rolled that together into the team that now makes up Koii. And we're basically a network dedicated to individualism and individual sovereignty. And so if you have a computer, you can use your computer on Koii. We think of it like Airbnb for AI. And so you can rent out a little bit of space on your computer at night, and then your AI, your personal AI, can use that space on your computer to make you some passive income. But it's not only that, it's also the added value of being able to coordinate tons of these devices together to build the foundational elements for the new internet that we've all wanted for so long. So Web3 has been around since 2015 or even earlier, but we really haven't seen that decentralized internet, even in the first 10 years, really take off. But with Koii, we're now actually starting to really crack that, and I think we're making some huge progress. Sure. So with Koii, we wanted to focus on the idea of knowledge versus information. So originally my interest in this sector came from looking at the news and thinking, there's a lot missing when you look at information around the world. When you hear about what's happening in other countries, or when you hear about what's happening in politics, like you can't really tell what's true and what isn't true. So that separates the idea of information from knowledge. And knowledge is truth, really. And it can be subjective, so each of us can have our own truth, but when we have knowledge, we say that that is the truth, and that is the thing that actually we hold sacred. And so Koii is the knowledgeable, open, infinite internet. It's knowledgeable because it's based on this idea of individual truth. It's open because anybody can add to it, and it's infinite because it grows every time somebody joins. And this is kind of how we envision this new internet working. It's a system that connects people together into a new framework for reality. And we've been lucky to be able to build a lot of amazing tech in this area for the last couple of years. And so now we're basically fulfilling on that promise of building a system that connects people and really gives them that ability to share truth. Yeah, we do. We like the fish theme as well. So we do have some fish themed stickers. Yeah, so that I mentioned Koii, right? So the first I is infinite. That's actually pretty hard to do in a computer system. So as you know, probably most blockchains have always wanted to be infinitely scalable, but it's very, very hard to actually achieve that. And when we were setting out to do this, we wanted a network that could scale as every new computer joins the network. So we wanted anybody with a laptop or any kind of personal device to be able to download our app and then join. And the problem with that is if you did that on traditional like Ethereum or Bitcoin rails, you'd reach transaction throughput saturation after about 1,000 installs. And so you'd maybe get to 1,000 nodes and then the network would collapse. If you look at Avalanche or some of the more recent scaling stuff from Sui and Aptos, you can get to like maybe 10 or 20,000 people, but then the network would start to have issues. And what we saw with Solana is Solana handles parallelization very well. So with the proof of history algorithm, you can have many parallel systems all running together within one blockchain. So we took the Solana virtual machine and we basically tore out everything to do with smart contracts, and we were able to refactor Solana so that it's only for computing. The reason we did this is we want people's home computers to be the actual powerhouse of the network, and so you don't really run much code on the Solana virtual machine. We just use it for timestamping. So you can think of this kind of like having an orchestra or like a large organization of people, and you have that like the timestamping and the rhythm that kind of connects everybody. So it's kind of like all of our computers are sort of dancing together, and then the timestamping comes from this Solana fork. But because we were able to do that about 2 years ago, we spent the last 2 years on testnet actually putting more and more people into that dance party. And last year we got almost 100,000 people on board with our beta. So we've launched the token just recently. Yeah, so we spent a long time actually looking at this like we were competing with Amazon and Google and other cloud hosting providers. So the early version of Koii, we were definitely looking at this like, how do we cut costs? How do we make things a little bit less expensive than these other competitors? What we've noticed recently is there's actually a lot of ways to make compute more valuable as opposed to trying to compete on cost. And so what we're really focused on now is the ability to turn your computer into something that makes you money or generates a lot more value than what you're putting in. And so last year, we discovered that we can do this with social media connections. And so if you have a personal social media account and your AI agent can log into your social account and do something, it can generate dollars, even like tens, $15 a day. And that's something that's very unique, and it doesn't have to do with like how big your computer is. It has to do with what your computer has access to on the internet. So that was kind of the beginning of this tipping point that we realized. And then the really big, massive adoption lately has been around having AI agents that can execute on your computer to do something meaningful. And so this is an area where I think decentralization has a massive advantage. And this is because I don't want to give my social media account or my GitHub account or my crypto wallet. I don't want to give any of those to Sam Altman and OpenAI. That's terrifying, right? I don't want to let anybody else's AI running on any other cloud. I don't want to let any of those to ever have access to my social media accounts, to my passwords, to my GitHub, to my bank accounts. They should never have access to that. But if it's running on my computer and it's open source, then I can start to trust it. So this becomes this advantage where you have a symbiotic relationship with your computing capacity. And it's actually not about how big your computer is. It's about what you personally can do with your computer. So that's really the area that we're playing in now. That's an area where I think these big cloud providers ultimately have to serve us as individuals. And so they might be able to rent me a computer that I can run something on, but I still want to run it with my own software, and I want it to be open source so I can trust what's happening under the hood. Even a step beyond that, though, because it's more about the human-centric. And so the computing capacity complements what the human wants to do and what they can do with their AI. Yeah, so the stability side has always been a question, even since like early things like Hivelo or Helium, actually, with like internet provisions. These decentralized networks always had the issue that a node would go offline and then the service could be interrupted. Now the interesting thing about that is that's only if I'm serving someone else with my computer to serve them. If I'm serving myself from my computer, then my computer's always on when I want to use it. And then the interesting thing becomes maybe when your computer's on and I need extra capacity, now I can rent from you. And so that's sort of how we think about this at Koii, and it's more about the individual side of it, where the consumer is the demand and also the consumer is the supply. And so for a lot of those types of applications, it works really smoothly. We've tested this across gaming, across AI. We've now done music streaming and things like that as well, and those all seem to work really well. The other area that we have looked at, though, is can we host websites this way? And is there like a convenient and clean way to do it? And so we started to build partnerships with other DePIN networks, actually. And so even if nodes are not available to satisfy what you need, our network can fluidly pull up other computers that are available through other DePIN protocols. So you can start to bridge that kind of reliability demand side. And this is through a coalition that we've been setting up called Prometheus. And so that allows us to have access to a bunch of other systems and to make them all cross-compatible. And I think the interesting thing is about 5 years ago, it was pretty much impossible to have comparable reliability on decentralized networks. But because DePIN and decentralized networks have become so popular now, there's actually a lot more devices than there used to be. And the average device is bigger and has better internet connectivity than it used to. This is the same kind of stuff from like Moore's Law, where the amount of computing capacity on a chip grows every year, but also the amount of data access and internet access that people have tends to go up every year as well, and people tend to have more actual extra devices sitting around. And so where 10 years ago the average person only had one computer, actually most people now have an extra old computer that they've been they don't know what to do with it. They leave it in their closet. They sometimes will trade it in, but like most of the time the trade-in value isn't very good. So most people have like an extra phone and an extra computer sitting around. So that's what we're looking at for reliability. Yeah, so this is actually the best thing about Koii. It's really straightforward. So I spent a long time, as I said, running this think tank where we were researching all the best ways that people had come up with to do this. I was around the academic world my whole childhood, and so I always had some issues with the way that these, like very, very smart people would say, hey, I have this big fancy list of words, and this is why I'm right. And that tends to work really well with investors, where these guys go in and they say, hey, I have a PhD, I worked at Cornell or I worked at Stanford, and you should trust me because I know a bunch of big words. And the PhDs just get all the funding like that. So what we did with Koii, we did something completely different. We invented something called gradual consensus. And gradual consensus is really straightforward. You do work, other people check the work that you do, and then you get a reward based on how much work you did and whether it was really good quality. And it's very, very straightforward. It's an open standard that works for everything. And what we've been doing lately is we're actually taking AI and we're using it to rewrite existing consensus models like Bitcoin, Ethereum, all these ones, into this very standard template, which is, again, you do the work that you do gets checked, and then you get a reward. And it's super, super simple. There's no big words. There's no ZK proofs. You can, of course, use these kinds of computing fundamentals if you want to accelerate things, but you don't need to. And what we've worked on doing is making it actually so standard that if you want to design these kinds of systems, you can actually ask AI to do it for you. And so for most people, you don't even really need a PhD or like even a computer science degree to be able to figure it out. Yeah, so I think the main difference that people don't understand with Koii is, with Koii, everybody brings their own computer. So most of these, you mentioned Akash and Render and Filecoin, most of those are actually re-renting data center capacity. And so there's some big building somewhere, and they've got thousands of servers,
Right.
and they're reselling it to you using the Akash token or the Render token or the Filecoin token. The problem with all of that is, A, it's more expensive because somebody's got to go into that building every day and check that everything's turned on. B, it means that you're actually not really connecting with other people. You're not building a peer-to-peer network. You're actually building a network where you're basically making a relationship with just another big data provider, except that you're paying in crypto now. And there's reasons for doing that. Like, if you imagine the team that built DeepSeek, for example, I'm sure that they probably wanted to be able to get cheap access to GPUs, and they probably wanted to pay in crypto so that they didn't have to deal with sanctions. And that's a really good reason to have crypto-based payments for GPUs. The problem with that, of course, is at the end of the day, if you pay for that GPU with crypto, somebody's got to sell that crypto now to cover that big data center. And if you're selling the crypto, that means the price is going to go down. So that's not good for anybody. And so what we actually wanted to see here is a system, and by the way, that's happened a lot. If you look at Filecoin and Akash and a bunch of these networks, they tend to have these really parabolic growth rates where they do a lot of marketing, they get more customers in, more people are buying capacity with that actual token. And then as soon as the sell-off happens, it goes right back down again. So I bought Filecoin in the ICO in 2017, and I'm still down 90%. So we didn't want to do that again, right? So the trick with Koii is we're using consumer capacity so that we can actually make sure that you're connecting with another person. And so when a new protocol launches on Koii, they create their own token and they pay it to a bunch of actual people. And if those people believe in that product, they don't have to spend any money to get that token. They can actually just use their personal computer to do it. And that means that there's much less sell pressure long term. So it saves a lot of money. It saves a lot of kind of headaches about like, who do I trust with my data? Now I'm trusting an actual person. And it also means that there's a lot less sell pressure. So the economics tend to work out a lot better. Yeah, so it's ridiculously easy, actually. I'm just going to show the Koii node. So this is the Koii node starting up. And you can see this is just an app on my computer, just like any other app. And this is something that's really, really easy to install. We made it, we designed it for people who kind of have no crypto experience. There's a lot going on my node because I use it really aggressively. But you can see here, it's basically showing all the different projects that I'm supporting. And if I go in here and I click play on one of these projects, it starts to run the task. And then you start seeing this number ticking up. And right away, you start actually making tokens. So this one just started up now, so it'll say 0 for a second, and then it'll start to tick up and tell me how much money I'm making. And you can see all of these ones are waiting for updates. So I haven't run my node in a day or so because I was traveling. But you can see all these ones here. This is actually ticking up right now, and it's telling me I'm earning this VIP token. So right now, as we're speaking, you can see this number ticking away and making me money.
Awesome.
That's actually how all these tasks on the Koii node work. And if you want to, you can go in here and see what they're doing. So this one's actually building an AI agent. This is a fork of Facebook's Llama algorithm that does AI agents. This Dangerous Dave one is a gaming product. And there's a whole bunch more in here. And you can see each one of them, I'm earning some tokens just passively as the network is doing work in the background. We're working on mobile. It's a little bit harder. So we made a deal with Solana Mobile earlier this year. And so we're starting to investigate how we can set things up with them. But we're also looking at potentially making a Koii phone. And the exciting thing there is we're able to give people the phone and then have the phone pay itself off.
That's
so
cool.
You'd have to pay a couple $100s up front, but then you get the money back afterwards, which would be really cool. I'm hoping that we'll have some pre-orders available this year for some hardware from Koii. And so we'll probably hopefully deliver them in 2026. Yeah, so we mentioned this earlier with the question about reliability and security. One of the things that happens, obviously, is as you get more and more nodes, you can do more interesting things and you can do them better. And so right now, what we've been really focused on is getting the dollars per node up to a good number. We want everybody to be able to make like $5 or $10 per day per node. And that means if you bring your computer, you get paid right away and you're making like enough money that it's worth all the trouble that you go through. And so we figured that out now with AI agents and with a lot of the stuff that we've done with social media accounts. So now that that's all online, the next phase of this is to get as many people in doing this as quickly as we can. And so the cool thing is, as we get more people onto the network, there's more products that we can offer. So when we get to about 200,000 nodes, we can offer music streaming that will be comparable to Spotify. And when we get to about 500,000 nodes, we can offer VPNs and messaging services that will be more secure and better than most VPNs and things like Signal that you might use otherwise. And so we're kind of focused on getting more nodes in now so that we can unlock these new features. We've got a lot of amazing founders that are now building products. And so each one of those founders is looking to also help us spread the word. And so as each one of those products kind of starts to take off and they build more things, they go out, they spend marketing budget, and we help them actually fundraise and actually help promote this. So that's kind of been the flow so far. In addition to that, I mentioned earlier, we're going around giving out these stickers. So I was just at Cambridge this week. I was in Boston actually earlier this week before we drove to Chicago. I was handing out stickers at the Harvard and MIT campuses. We have activations happening in 23 campuses across India, We've also got a whole group of universities in Thailand and in Singapore as well that are now participating. And so we have campus reps that are every day going out and actually handing out stickers and teaching people themselves. So that's been the really good way to do this. And I think what we found is we don't want to grow too fast. We actually want to have like real relationships and a strong community. But it's been working pretty well. There's about 80,000 people in our Telegram messaging every day right now, and there's another 60,000 in our Discord. So it's definitely been growing quite quickly. Yeah, so there's two really cool things we can do there. The first one's called the bonus task. So the way the bonus task works is we've allocated the Koii ecosystem fund, and if the community votes on your project, not only do people who run your task on their computers, so the node operators that provide something to you, they get a reward, but also you as the developer get half the rewards. And so you can get paid directly from the community for actually participating, and you get the ecosystem fund straight into your wallet. The other side of it, though, of course, is because it's subsidizing you, anybody who comes and runs your task on their computer is also going to get a subsidy, and that means that you basically don't have to pay up front, and you can get paid, which is pretty cool. So unlike most existing APIs where you have to pay them and then you have to kind of convince people to provide services to you, on Koii, the node operator gets paid and you also get paid. And this is, of course, a short-term thing, but it's kind of our way of bringing in the right founders, and it's been going really well so far.
Right.
So the program's received a lot of interest. The second thing that's really unique about Koii is because we have all these different accounts connected to the nodes, you can actually get node operators to run AI agents that write code. This is something that we tested last week, and so we had over 2,000 GitHub PR pull requests. And so that's basically a node comes online, it has an AI agent running on the node, it writes software, and it pushes it to your GitHub. So you can create an open source GitHub, and you can crowdsource all the hard work that it takes to actually build that product.
Awesome.
And I think that's a pretty unique opportunity. So you just have to come to Koii with a spec of like, here's the list of features that I want to build. And if the community likes what you're doing, they'll vote on you. They'll allocate tokens from the ecosystem fund directly to actually solving that problem. And then the nodes actually get to work writing the code. So that's, I think, the real future here is like, as a founder, you don't actually have to sit down and work till 5 o'clock in the morning on writing code. You just need to be able to recruit the right people and tell the right story. That's what we're really excited about right now. Yeah, so right now, I can't say names specifically, but we have about 20 projects that are collectively on our Prometheus coalition. And so this is a group of people who've committed to building the foundational layer for decentralized AI. And it includes like layer 1 blockchains, but also a whole bunch of really, really smart AI people that we've been working with for the last couple of years, like sort of my research partners. The announcements about that are going to be coming out in the next week or two. And then the other side of it beyond that is on the university layer. We're actually starting campus clubs at all these universities as opposed to going through the faculty. Because what we found, depending on the part of the world you're in, if you go through the faculty, the first thing they want is they want a sponsorship. They want you to sponsor some kind of like a grad student for their lab or something like that, which is crazy. And so instead of that, what we've actually been doing is just walking onto the campus and saying hi to people in the computer science department. And that seems to work really well. The professors tell us to go get off the campus, and then the students are like, wow, that's really cool. I can make passive income and my computer can write code. Amazing. And then they take the sticker and then they contact us later. And so we're doing very much the guerrilla punk way to do this, but it seems to be working really well. So I'll speak a little bit more to the Prometheus coalition. So Prometheus was the firebringer, right? In Greek mythology, he was the one who came, he was one of the Titans, and he came down to man with fire, and he gave man fire, and that was what created in the Greek version of history, that was what created all technology, is that, man received fire from the gods, and then we're able to build all this stuff. And so what we're trying to do with the Prometheus Pact is we've got a whole bunch of different projects that have come together, and we're building a common framework. So you can think of this kind of like screwdrivers. If you've ever looked at the tips of a screw, they've all got different heads on them, but there's only like 5 or 6 different ones around the world. And no matter where you are in the world, your screwdrivers will work with the right screw head. And that takes a lot of conversations, right? That's the thing. And so what we found recently is actually we can get AI to write SDKs and write integrations. And that's a really exciting opportunity because if you want people to write integrations, I used to do this in factories where my job would be to read, I'd read manual A from company A and manual B from company B, and my job was to write the software that would connect those two products. And that was really, really tedious work. It's really, really exhausting. And when there's bugs, it's really hard to figure it out because nobody's going to help you. Company A doesn't want to help, company B doesn't want to help, but somebody has to figure it out. And so what we've done with Prometheus is we're taking all this amazing code building AI that we have, and we're using it to connect all of these other technologies together. And so we've got all these amazing partners that we put together, and we're trying to build a system where everybody's products work cohesively together. So I can announce one name on this list, which is Hivelo, which is a project that I've been a big fan of for a while. Actually, we wrote a blog post about how much we like them on Koii a little while ago. And Hivelo's product allows you to buy any DeepIn token you need to using the Hivelo token, which is an amazing product. And so that creates a socket interface where now that's integrated into our AI systems. And so when a founder comes to Koii and they have a good idea, all of these Koii nodes that have been earning high velo can then flip around and automatically buy any other tokens that we need. So if we need a Kosh, if we need Filecoin, whatever it is. And so that's just one example of how this stuff fits together. But you can kind of think about how this works in terms of like, it's possible to do these things already, but it's hard. And if you make it like 95% easier, then 100 more founders can build things. And if you make it 99% easier, then 10,000 more founders can build things. And if you make it 100% easier, anybody can build it. And that's what we're really trying to get to, is where the community can just pull computers and boom, now we've got a new internet. And so that's kind of the direction that we're thinking with this. So I'm actually headed to ETH Denver right now, and we're going to have a big inaugural dinner for the Prometheus project. And we're hoping to onboard all of these partners and get all the documents signed. And then as soon as that's done, then the next big wave of this will all come out. And that's going to allow us to pretty much take any founder or even anybody with a hobby kind of interest in this stuff and make them a leader, where all they need to do is recruit people with computers through Koii, and then they're off to the races. And the software will build itself, the apps will launch, and the tokens will also launch. And so that's the really exciting future, is tons and tons of tokens launching, a lot of really amazing products, and everything kind of built under a common framework where it's all contributing back to the common goal. Yeah, so this comes back to the name again. It's the knowledgeable, open, infinite internet. So what we want to see with this is kind of like, within the human body, right? You've got your brain up here, and then everything else is connected through it. And so the tricky thing is, the human species right now is actually not really connected by one brain, and we don't want to be. We are the brains, each one of us. And we want to be able to give our voice and actually have our part of like kind of the democratic process, but it's very complicated. And so what we want from Koii is, and I think what we want from Web3 in general, is we want the network to be the facilitator of all human connection. And so this means going beyond just Bitcoin consensus over transactions or Ethereum consensus over code execution, and getting to the point where we can have collaboration that is really easy and effortless for people. And so this means new social media websites, it means new streaming platforms, it means censorship-free communications. And these are all things that are getting more and more important. So when I started out doing this in like 2014, 2015, people weren't that interested. People said, hey, there's no censorship on the news. There's no fake news. There's no problems with government. Government's working fine. That's what people told me. And I remember having these conversations and people would laugh me out of the room saying, we don't need to fix this. And now we're seeing every government in the world, there's elections happening and people are worried about censorship. They're worried about fake news. They're worried about not having a voice. They're worried about not being able to collaborate with their friends and partners. And so that's the world that we see. It's not a new internet, but a new human race and a new society built on a new internet. And then it all comes from self-organization. And it all comes down to like, can I as an individual recruit my friends and build something for the community that I'm part of? So that's what we're really hoping to do. And that's why we see the advantage of like personalized computing and also of AI. And without both personalized computing and AI, it's not possible. Because if we have some big AI company that does this, they're going to end up owning everything, and then they'll be the brain. And the rest of us will just be the hands and the fingers. And you know what happens is like, if you've got one brain, then you lose the fingers and hands and you get new fingers and hands, and that's not great. That's that's the world we see. So we've actually got it in development right now. We had started this project about a year ago, and it was really difficult. And now that we've kind of brushed up on our AI tooling, it's definitely at the top of the list. I think the top languages that we're focusing on right now are going to be Spanish, Chinese, and I think probably German, but I can definitely put Korean on that list. Awesome. Thanks for a great interview. Really appreciate it.